Welcome to the Therapy and Prayer podcast. Here you'll find the intersection between faith and mental health. I'm your host, Camille. I'm a licensed therapist and clinical social worker, but more importantly, I'm a Christian who really loves the Lord. And I'm just trying to navigate this life without falling victim to it, just like everyone else. Here we take a faith-based approach to all things mental health and wellness, because the Bible tells us to guard our heart and mind, and sometimes we need a little bit of help with that. Hey everyone! Welcome back to the Therapy and Prayer podcast. My name is Camille. I'm your host. And as always, I am so very happy that you're here. Take a second, think about your week. How's it been going? What are your highs and lows? Sometimes I'll say, what's your rose and thorn of the week? Like the best part of your week and the hardest part of your week. Just take a second and reflect, because you probably haven't done that yet. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. I usually have a pretty detailed outline about what we're going to talk about, and I don't have that today for a few different reasons. But the long and short of it is, the last couple of weeks, the last week or so of my life, I've kind of been catapulted into this pressure cooker of a kind of chaotic transitional space. And the last two episodes, I think, have really come into play a lot right now with where I am. And y'all know that I like to work through things with you. So a part of why we don't have an outline today is because I don't have the capacity. But another part is because I thought that it would be pretty powerful for me to just talk some things through in real time as I am walking through a challenging season. So I have some things and some thoughts that have kind of been keeping me going that I thought it might be kind of helpful to share and for us to talk through. I am a fan of verbal processing. I'm a fan of audio and video processing. I frequently encourage my clients to take out their phone, a recording device, do a voice note, and just kind of talk and think out loud to help think through some things. So this is also going to serve that purpose for me today. The last two episodes have been about navigating through change gracefully in transitional seasons and self-discipline. And as soon as I finished recording that self-discipline episode, within less than a week, so many things had kind of been upended in my life. And I find myself now in this space where I am having to juggle a lot of things. There's been a lot of chaotic things happening. Long story short, just because I don't have the energy to try to talk about this vaguely, somebody broke into my apartment. Somebody broke into my apartment. And so I'm now having to move very, very quickly. Moving is always chaotic, but moving on a very short timeline has just put things into so much disarray. At the same time, there's some other things happening in my life and in my family. And I also am still having to work and having to see clients. So there are a lot of things right now that are all important. And when everything feels important, it's easy to feel kind of paralyzed and very overwhelmed and not know where to start or how to start, because you can't really reprioritize very much. So in the past, when I found myself in spaces like this is when I would typically reach for some of my unhealthy coping, for some of my maladaptive defense mechanisms. And I'm grateful that God has already been working on me in a few areas. And now that I'm in this space, this is the time when I have to put those things into practice. This is the time when all of those things, all those areas that He's been growing in me, this is the time when they get to shine. And so one of the things that is kind of helping me in this season is that thought about not taking it personally, but looking at this as an opportunity to grow and as an opportunity to use the parts of me that God has been recently developing. So I just jotted down a couple of things that I have been reminding myself in these last few weeks. And so I want to share those with you all, and then we'll just kind of talk through them, and you can kind of hear about how I've been making it through and how I've been making it through without completely regressing. And hopefully that can give you some things to help you work through some chaotic seasons as well, if you're in one now, or you can take some notes and save it for your next chaotic season, because we know that it is going to happen. It's going to happen. We already know that. So the first kind of thought that I'm really clinging to, and that has helped me to give myself some grace in this time, is that slow movement is still movement. we've talked before about the fact that sometimes we're not able to show up at what we would deem to be our best, right? Depending on our capacity, depending on what's going on with us. This is a prime example of that. I am maybe not able to perform at a level that I would prefer to perform at, whether that be at work or at home, but I'm still performing at all. I have been working on a few different things as far as like career planning and development of a few different things. And and I had like a timeline about when those things were going to happen, when they were going to start to happen. And I've had to shift that. And a part of my instinct was to say, you know what, just put all that stuff on the shelf. Don't even think about it right now because you can't think about it right now. Or don't even think about it right now because you can't you cannot do it in the way that you were planning to do it. You can't commit as much time and effort as you want to commit to it right now. So don't commit any time and effort to it. And that doesn't have to be the case. This also, I think, is a reminder that the goal is not perfection. The goal is progress. The goal is to still show up. The goal is to not stop showing up. So even in recording this episode, first I was like, oh my goodness, when am I going to have time to like sit down and plan out an episode and like write my outline and this and that. I usually take a good amount of time and thoughtfulness, and there still was a good amount of thoughtfulness into this episode, just in a different way. I wasn't able to put the dedicated time aside to do it, and so but I know that I had made a commitment to myself and to God really about the level of consistency that I am going to have with this, and I really had to be honest with myself. About what that needed to look like. I can still maintain that level of consistency. It just may not be in the way that I have been doing it up until this point. And I had to be okay with that and say, you know what, it's better to still maintain that consistency. It's better to still be able to put something out that people are going to connect with. And how beautiful, what a blessing is it to find a way to connect with people with this community that we're building. How beautiful is it to find a way to connect with this community when I really am needing community? That's something else that has been helpful in this time, is that I have really been leaning on my community and on my village, my family, but also the new people who have come into my life. So essentially, this podcast is an extension of my community, I think. And so I didn't want to not be active with people who are invested in what it is that I'm doing here. That wasn't worth it to me, and that would make me feel even worse, I think. But beyond that, I would be breaking a commitment that I made to God, right? This podcast is not about me. This is about God. And so if this is happening in my life in this time, then it must be for a reason. It must be for a purpose. So, anyway, see, this is why I be needing an outline, y'all, because I be going on all these tangents, and I'm trying to think, how did we even get here? But we got here because I'm talking about how slow progress is still progress and perfection is not the goal. So this episode is a little bit different, but I think that it still is really meaningful. So that's encouraging to me. I have to remind myself of that over and over again, because my instinct a lot of the time when I feel like this is just to stop. I done told y'all I get overwhelmed easily and quickly, and this has been an overwhelming time. This has been a stressful time for me. I'm breaking out. Okay. I got all these pimples showing up, but I done already packed up my little makeup that I usually wear. So y'all getting fresh face today. And I don't really know exactly where this episode is going to go, but I know it's going to go exactly where it needs to go. I've already asked the Holy Spirit to guide me. So slow movement is better than no movement at all. There's a lot between 0 and 100. And I think a lot of the times we have this idea that unless we're at 100, it's not productive and it's not effective. But that's not true at all. You're still moving forward if you're going 5 miles an hour. You're moving forward if you're going 10 miles an hour. You're moving forward if you're going 2 miles an hour. So slow movement is still movement. I am having to slow down in some areas right now. And while that may not be ideal, I'm glad that I'm still able to move forward at all, because I'm telling you, there would have been a time where I just would have stopped a lot of things, just would have kind of abandoned some of the things that were important to me. And then once I got through whatever challenging season, maybe I would try to revisit them, and maybe it would have taken a long time for me to revisit them. So slow movement is still movement. Something else that I've been thinking about in all of this chaos is, well, and really something that I'm having to remind myself is that comfort should not be chaotic. What I mean by that is that it is absolutely natural to want to reach for comfort when we're in stressful times. You want to reach for comfort when you're suffering or are enduring any kind of pain. You want to reach for comfort when things are overwhelming. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The problem is that a lot of the times when we reach for comfort, that comfort is dysfunctional. That comfort is destructive. That comfort is unhealthy. And that comfort can invite more chaos. For me, I'm just going to be honest. I'm an emotional eater. Okay. I'm an emotional eater. I'm a snacker. So when I tell you I have been feeling snackish, oh, I have been feeling so snackish. And so usually my instinct would be to either tell myself, don't snack, like stop eating all these snacks, or just to go way off the deep end and just order takeout every single day and just eat a ton of junk food. But what I'm allowing myself the space to do is to find comfort without the chaos. So, okay, I like snacks. I need snacks. So let me make sure that I have some snacks around that are not going to be destructive, that are not going to make my body feel bad. So I've been snacking on my little popcorn. I've been snacking on some fruit, which I usually do anyway. And I have had some takeout. I have had some takeout, but not nearly as much. Okay. Not nearly as much. I just made some salmon and some vegetables today. All right. And I'm moving out in 2 days and I cooked today. So I'm letting myself reach for the things that bring me comfort without inviting the chaos that they could potentially bring if I let it get out of control. Now, there are some vices that we're not able to really compromise with like that, okay? Eating is an easy one to make some adjustments with, but some of these other ones that we reach for, we maybe need to find a replacement because comfort should not be chaotic. So if you find yourself wanting to reach for some of these destructive coping skills, we need to find a replacement for that. Absolutely. We're talking substances, we're talking addictions, we're talking sex, we're talking all of the things that we know are not good for us, but that we reach for when we need to feel something or when we need to feel something good. And this is also a good reminder as to why it's important to cultivate a set of healthy coping skills before you need them. Had I not already been working on some of this stuff, and this is why I'm so grateful that I had already really been praying a lot about self-discipline and self-control, because had I not, I would have already gained 15, 20 pounds. And so because I've already been working on some of those things, then I'm having an easier time adjusting what is bringing me comfort in this season. So don't wait until you're in crisis. Crisis control cannot be the only time that we familiarize ourselves with our coping skills, right? That cannot be the only time that you think about the things that bring you comfort. So we really need to be more proactive in developing our own personal toolbox of things, right? Do it now before you need it. Do future you a favor so that when you're in that space, when you're in that season, it's much easier to pivot and say, let me get something that's a little bit healthier. I have, because I've also been intentional about building community and cultivating friendships, it's been a lot easier for me. It's been so much easier for me to let people know what's going on with me this time around. That's not always something that I'm comfortable doing. I, for the longest time, had this thought or this, I don't know, rule or way that I navigated relationships that was like, if you don't ask, then you must not want to know. So it really was kind of like a don't ask, don't tell. If you don't ask me what's going on, then you must not want to know what's going on. So I'm not just about to volunteer information if you didn't ask for it. That was really how I was. That was how I was navigating relationships. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes that instinct and that urge still comes up a little bit. But I am so grateful that one of the prayers that God has answered for me, especially since I moved to Houston, has been in surrounding me with like-minded people. That has been so wonderful. And it's in seasons like this that I'm able to see the fact that I'm already living in answered prayers. I prayed about that so intentionally. And this is a part of the reason why I feel so much less isolated than I would have. In the past, when I've gone through things like this, when I've gone through seasons like this, I felt very isolated, which is kind of crazy because it's when I was living in California where I knew more people, where I had more family. And so part of it was because of how I was navigating those relationships. Part of it was because of the type of relationships that were available to me. But because that's something that I have been intentionally working on, it was so easy for me to reach out to people in my life and say, hey, y'all, this is what's going on with me and I need some support. And it was so comforting and made me emotional, and sometimes still does when I think about it, how quickly they responded. How quickly they responded and said, what do you need? Whatever you need. And they have just wrapped their arms around me. And it really showed me how much community I have here. I knew that I was building some and was making some connections, but it's not until you really need people. It's not until people have a chance to show up for you and you see them jump at the chance to show up for you that you realize how much love you have around me. That's really big for me. That's really big for me. Because so much of my life is very independent and very isolating. I also have some, I don't know. I've got some like some maladaptive or some like negative beliefs and thoughts when it comes to how I am perceived in relationships from other people. And I'm really trying to decide how vulnerable we're getting on this episode today. Quick little PSA, if you happen to be one of my clients and you're listening to this, thank you so much for the support. Please don't feel the need to bring this up in our sessions. It's going to be about you. So this is all you're going to get. I have a thing and have had for a while about how I'm perceived from people. And because of that, I don't have a very good gauge of how people feel about me, and I think that's probably a part of the reason why I have been kind of hesitant in the past to like reach out or let people know that I need something, because I'm like, no, don't nobody care about that. Like, people have, other things going on in their life. Like, it's not important enough, or I'm just someone that they kind of know casually. Actually, that's something that God has been showing me for a while now. My birthday passed a couple of months ago, and my sister planned just the most wonderful surprise birthday. It was wild. She had so many people not just show up, but like fly out for my birthday. And just all day, we were going to do different activities, and somebody else would pop up, and somebody else would pop up, and somebody else would pop up. And my jaw was on the floor all day. I was floored, flabbergasted. I know that I have people who love me, but I think sometimes I feel like it's theoretical. It's like they love me as a person, I guess, and like what I represent and, kind of like what I bring, but I don't have a very good gauge of whether or not people feel like they're close to me. I think also because sometimes generally I think you feel close to people when folks like open up to you and share things with you. But people open up to me all the time. People open up to me all the time. And I mean, at work, that's what people open up to me. So I'm used to people like kind of sharing things with me. So that is not really a very good gauge for me about how people feel about me, or if they feel close to me. Definitely not close enough to like fly across the country for my birthday. It wasn't even a milestone birthday. So I was like completely surprised. But that day, and there was a dinner that night, and I just looked around the table and saw so many people. It was amazing. So many people who I love, but who made it a point to show me that they love me. And there were others who couldn't make it, but reached out and wanted to be able to be there. And so that, I think, was one of the first times more recently where I really had to take a step back and say, wait a minute. People really, really care about me. People really, really care about me. People really love me. And in everything that's happening with me right now is the second time recently where I've been like, whoa, people really love me, and they don't have to. I think that's the part that really gets me, is that they don't have to. No one is obligated to be here. I think outside of family, no one's obligated to be here. And so when people who are not like related to me really show up for me in big ways, it means so much. It means so much. And things that I consider big maybe wouldn't be to some people, but yeah, so I have done a better job of reaching out and letting people know like what I'm going through, and that yes, I do need help and would be grateful for some support. And the response has been overwhelming in a really good way. And so the blessing in all of this, in this really like chaotic and very stressful and overwhelming time, is that God is showing me the prayers that He has answered. He's showing me the prayers that he's already answered. And I'm so grateful. And so it's been really nice to be able to balance out the stress and balance out the chaos with gratitude for the answered prayers that are showing up now, and that God is reminding me of these answered prayers. And I'm grateful for the reminder, because otherwise I would only be thinking about all of the craziness and all of the chaos that's happening. Don't get me wrong, that is taking up a lot of brain space right now. There is a lot happening with me. And it's so funny too, because I said, you know what? I really must have jinxed myself a couple of weeks ago. In one of the recent episodes, I was like, I'm doing well. I'm doing good. I'm doing better than I've been doing in a long time. And I feel like, I don't know. And I feel like the devil said, oh yeah? But maybe it was God that said, oh yeah? So, even with that being said, I am noticing my mindset in all of this. One of the other things that has been really helpful one of the other things that has been extremely important in all of this, is to still keep God central, and to cling to Him in the middle of it. In the past, when I've gone through things that have been really hard for me, when I've gone through transitional seasons that have felt pretty chaotic, one of the things that tends to change is that in that, don't always feel as close to God. I think I'm less intentional about my relationship with Him when things get crazy. And that's pretty common. That's pretty natural for a lot of us. We tend to reprioritize when we're in the middle of chaos. And unfortunately, a lot of the times, God might lose that number one spot. He may be bumped down to number like 4 or 5 when things get intense around you. And for me, I did not want to have to crawl my way back to Him after I get through this season. But also because of how closely we've been walking lately, it's really not an option. I know that if I am only relying on myself to get through this, that things are going to get kind of dark, probably. I know that. I know that I alone am not capable or equipped of helping myself through this on my own accord. I know that. So it's not an option for me to let go of God's hand right now. This is when I need to be grabbing onto it even tighter. Now, what my time with Him looks like now is a little bit different than what it looks like when things are going great. Part of the reason is because, y'all, my prayers and my prayer life is much more emotional right now. Sometimes I have really not had the words lately in some of my prayers. And so my time with God has looked different, but I have still been having time with God. I insist, right? I've made it a point to go to midweek Bible study. I've made it a point to make it to choir rehearsals and go to extra choir rehearsals. I'm going to choir rehearsal today. I'm making it a point to be around God and around God's people, because I know that I need God and God's people right now. I've still been regularly doing my devotional. My devotional time maybe is not as long as it has been, or as I would like it to be, but it's still just as palpable. And I'm seeing the fruits of that also while I'm in it. I think it's helped me to keep a clear head. I think that it gives me something to hold on to. Because, of course, whenever we're in seasons like this, it's one thing after another. It's not just one thing going wrong. It's never just one thing. That would be way too easy. So it's always back to back, right? He hit you with the 1, 2, and then the 3, 4, 5, and the 6. It's always that. So I need something to hold on to, because anytime I think I get a handle on something, or I think I'm able to manage this level of stress, something else is going to come. And so I really am needing to be anchored in something. And that's God. For me, that's God. And so but that's also because I have been growing in my self-discipline, and a part of that is in prioritizing time with God, always, regardless, like no matter what. We've been talking about self-care at church lately. And one of the things that we talked about a couple weeks ago was the fact that when our circumstances change, that it's difficult to keep doing what we want to be able to do for God. It's difficult to be able to take care of ourselves so that we can be our best for God when our circumstances change. And what we really and a part of what we said was that even when our circumstances change, the desire to do the will of God does not change. But what that looks like, carrying out the will of God, might look different depending on your circumstances changing. And so for me, I am wanting to do the will of God. I am wanting to stay close to God and to have an intimate relationship with Him. That may look different depending on the day or depending on my circumstances, but that desire does not change. That desire does not go away. When things get crazy in my life, I don't all of a sudden have no more desire to be close to God. I don't lose interest in being close with God. We shouldn't lose interest in being close with God. And I don't think that that's the case a lot of the times when he does kind of drop on the totem pole. I don't think it's that we lose interest, but I think that when chaos ensues around us, that we get fearful. And when we get fearful, then we start to lean on our own devices and on our own understanding. And we don't and we need something to give us comfort and to feel good about. And so we try to make things happen and we try to regain control. That's what it is. When chaos ensues, we feel so out of control. And when we feel out of control, then we try to regain control over whatever we can. And then there's just that tension and resistance that we bring into our relationship with God. What I am learning and have learned is that when chaos ensues and I feel out of control, what I am in control of is how close I can be to God in the middle of that chaos. And maybe that's all I can be in control of. But that has to be enough. I also know for me that when it comes to my self-care, my spiritual wellness is top priority. If nothing else is going on, I need to make sure that I am tending to my spiritual needs. So while I haven't been in the gym as much, that's another reason that I need not go crazy with all this snacking. I haven't been in the gym as much, but I have still been in my word. And that is helping me to get through this season. I don't feel as much shame for not doing all of the things because I'm still doing what I deem to be the most important things, right? And it's not to say that I have just forgotten about everything else about my self-care, but that is to say that I'm having to adjust my self-care given my current capacity. One of the things I'm proud of is that I've still been doing my skincare, and I really have been needing to because I'm having a lot of like stress pimples and breakouts. So I don't know how much it's actually helping, but I am so quick. That's one of the things that is quick to go all the time. I'll be so tired and not in the mood, but y'all know just last week we talked about the fact that we're not always in the mood to do the important things, but the purpose remains. So while I'm not in the mood to do my skincare and wash my face before I go to bed, the purpose remains. The summertime is coming and it's too hot to be wearing makeup. So I need my skin to be right. Okay. That purpose is still important. So we gonna wash that face. Okay. We washing that face. Similarly, I am okay with having to pack and go up and down these stairs because I need to get some kind of movement in my body. I'm not going to the gym right now, but I still need to move my body. My dog has also been helpful with that. Y'all see my dog. Y'all see my Nova. She's in here. She's just not on the couch right now. But it would be easy to just, like take her out to go to the restroom real quick and then come right back inside. But I make it a point to make sure, especially on days where I'm like super stressful, I make it a point to stay outside and walk around for at least like a good 20 minutes, get some movement, get some sun, get some fresh air, because I know that I need it. That's a regular part of my self-care too. On like hard days and stressful days, I make sure that we got some time outside. Okay, get outside. Get outside, get some vitamin D, get some sun, get some fresh air. Get outside, okay? But especially since I'm not exercising as much or as intentionally, I'm still making sure that I'm moving my body and trying to take care of it as much as I can, given everything that's happening. So we have to be flexible and adaptable with our self-care, but our self-care is still important. Because again, the purpose of taking care of yourself, taking care of your temple, that does not change just because our circumstances change. So for me, that's looking like making sure that if nothing else, I'm still connecting with the Spirit. If nothing else, I'm still connecting with God. I'm choosing what is essential to my self-care. This is a tip that I tell people a lot of the times too. What are the bare minimum essential things that you have to have, that you have to do in order to keep moving forward? For me, I need to feel connected with God in order to keep moving forward. I do need to move my body in some way, whether that's walking the dog, whether that's doing some stretches, whether that's dancing around the house a little bit. I need to move my body because it gets stiff. I hold a lot of tension in my body, in my back, and in my shoulders. My back has been killing me lately. I need to move my body. I need to be outside at least a little bit. So please believe we've been walking slowly to the car. We have been walking slowly to the car. Okay. We have been taking our time on potty breaks with Nova. We've been trying to be outside, and it's starting to get warm. I went to breakfast with my sister today. We sat outside and I just needed to be outside. Okay. Like those are some of the things that are essential to me. I need to drink my water. I've been drinking a lot of water. Those are essential to me, to my self-care. So what are your self-care essentials? Meaning, if you don't do anything else, you have to at least do these in order to move forward, in order to be able to keep going. That's not what do you think would be helpful, but that is what are the absolutely essential things, like eating. One thing about me, I ain't skipping no meals, okay? I'm not skipping no meals, but I know, especially as I'm getting older, I need some vegetables, okay? I cannot have takeout 3 meals a day. I can't do it. If I do, we're going to Panera, we're going to Kava, we're getting give me some greens in there. I need some vegetables, because otherwise it's going to be, we don't even need to talk about what's going to happen to my body if I don't get my vegetables. That is essential to me. Never thought I would be that kind of person, but here we are. So while I'm not doing all of the things on my ideal self-care plan, there are a few things that I know I have to hold on to in order to still feel well enough to do what I need to do to get where I need to go. Another thought that has been helpful to me, and that I think a lot of us probably need to hear, is don't take it personal. Take it as an opportunity. A lot of the times I hear people say things like, why does this keep happening to me? We fall into the why me trap, and we get angry at God because we feel like it's a punishment, and we take it very personal that he allows us to go through really challenging seasons sometimes. And I know that sometimes the type of suffering that we endure feels very unjust. Some of the suffering that we go through or that our loved ones go through, it's really unbearable. And it can make us question God, and it can make us really angry at him. So I do understand how we get to that point of taking it really personal, and thinking that it feels like a punishment. But that mindset only adds another layer of doubt and anger and bitterness. It ends up just making things a lot harder, I think. And for me, if I were to allow that mindset to take root, then that would pull me away from God. And we just talked about how I really can't afford to do that. And so reminding myself not to take it personal, and that God is not punishing me because he's not a vindictive God, that's been really helpful for me because it has opened up the door and allowed me to find a new way to view what I'm going through. And so instead of getting angry at God, I am learning to be grateful for the opportunity to know him more or in a new way. Or because I know that on the other side of this, there's going to be so much more glory. I know that. But also, I'm grateful for another opportunity to endure better and to do it better this time. I'm doing Jackie Hill Perry's devotional upon waking. And in one of the days, it was talking about endurance and how every time that we find ourselves in a similar situation, either like falling in the same way or suffering in the same way, that it is an opportunity to endure better. And that's been a really helpful reframe for me. It's an opportunity to do it better, to endure better. How many times do we look back and say, you know what, I should have done it this way, or it would have been so much better had I done X, Y, and Z? And every time that we go through some sort of adversity, it is an opportunity to do it better and to do it differently. It's an opportunity to do it with God this time if I didn't do it with him last time. So instead of taking it personal and as a punishment, I, like a lot of other things, I'm learning to see it as an invitation to be closer to God and to grow more intimately with God. And really, it's an opportunity to kind of flex some of the ways that I've been growing lately in God. When, a lot of times when we say like we're being tested, we think about like being faced with sin and being able to like resist that kind of temptation. But maybe it's like, remember when you were in school and you had a test coming up, and when you were not prepared for that test, you were dreading it. But when you were prepared for that test, sometimes I was like, yeah, let me go and take this test because I know I just studied this. It's right here. It's right here. Let me hurry up and go and take this test while it's still fresh in my mind. And I feel good about it. Sometimes I'm excited about it. And I walk away from it feeling triumphant. And so it's a similar feeling when I find myself in spaces like this, because I know that God has been working on me in my discipline, and he's been working on me in walking through transitions gracefully. So because those things are fresh on my mind, then I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, cool, great. Let me hurry up and take this test while it's fresh on my mind so I can pass it. And I think I've been doing okay. I do think I've been doing okay. Let me tell you though, this enemy has gotten, he getting tricky, and he's mad. And this is something else that I think about a lot when we say like, oh, why is this happening? Why me? Da 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 da. Part of it, I think, is because you're doing something right. I truly believe that when we are walking in alignment with God's will for us, when we are allowing him to order our steps, when we are getting closer and closer to our purpose, I think when that happens, that the enemy gets big mad and that he needs to find more creative ways to try to trip us up and to try to slow us down. I took out my braids the other day and I washed my hair, and I said, why is some of my hair falling out right now? Why is that happening? That hasn't happened in years. And I said, you know what? The devil can't get my spirit. And so he's trying to come after my body. And I truly believe that. And I said, wow, look at that. Look at that growth. Immediately, that was my first thought. He can't get my spirit, so now he's trying to get my body. When this happened to me before, because this ain't the first time my hair has fallen out because of stress. When it happened to me before, it about ruined me. Okay? Listen, Black women in our hair, it's a thing. It took me out when this happened before. I was like devastated. It really shook me. And it just didn't this time, like at all. I had a moment with myself in the mirror and had to like speak some life over myself, and really had to speak that and say he can't get my spirit. So he's trying to attack my body, but this body is temporary, and we do not fight against flesh. We do not fight against flesh and blood, but against principalities, huh? So he's trying to come after my flesh. But we got to die to self daily anyway. This is all temporary. So I don't need it. Okay. And so through this, I'm seeing the test, and I'm seeing myself passing the test. Now, of course, can't say that too confidently because I'm still in it. Okay. I'm still in it. Some things still need to fall into place. That's been a part of why this has been so stressful. It's because things were not falling into place at first, and now they're starting to fall into place, but there are still a couple of things that had to fall into place. And that kind of instability, it really triggers me, and like my anxiety gets really high. I get really, really stressed. I get really, really, really stressed. And this is also a prime example as to why I have been trying to go back to a 9 to 5 for so long, because I don't have no PTO. Okay. Which means that when all this craziness is happening, I'm trying to pack up my whole life and move. I'm also still having to work. I'm also still having to see clients. And that's difficult. Now, I love my job. I really, really do. One of the challenges though is that when my personal life gets really stressful, I have to put a little bit of extra effort, a lot of extra effort to stay present with my clients, which is par for the course. That's a part of the job, but that makes it more draining for me. So I'm more tired and I'm more fatigued, but I don't really have the space to be more tired and more fatigued because I need to pack up my whole life and move in a couple of days. So things are challenging, and that's another thing that has been making it really kind of challenging. And so I'm having to really, of course, leaning on God, but I'm also having to employ a lot of the tools that I know work for me, right? We have talked a lot about self-care. And we've talked about coping, and we talked about defense mechanisms. So I'm noticing some of my instincts coming up of wanting to go back to my unhealthy defense mechanisms, but I am instead choosing to lean into the healthier ones. I am still committing to my self-care, even when I'm not in the mood, because I know that I'm only going to suffer for it more. I'm making sure that I'm holding on to God and that He is still staying number one. I may reprioritize other things, but I can't afford to reprioritize that. And I'm giving myself the space to slow down, because slow movement is still movement. So those are some of the things that I've been thinking about lately. I feel like I have to wrap this part up before I just kind of keep talking and going on all these tangents. I hope that I hope y'all been able to follow me. See, this is why I need my outline. This is why I need it. But those are some of the things that have really, been helpful to me, and that I've been clinging to in this season, and I hope that they can be helpful to you all too. Yeah, okay. So let's go on to our scripture for the day. My scripture for the day is really one of my favorites that just always brings me comfort when I am struggling, when I'm going through it. And so this is Romans 8:18. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that is to be revealed to us. I just need a reminder sometimes that what we're going through now is not even a fraction of the majesty and the glory that we're going to receive when we leave here, but even on the other side of the suffering here on earth. And that scripture has it's evolved to mean multiple things to me over time and over the years. Initially, it was talking about when we're no longer here, that the glory that's going to be revealed to us is just everything, all the suffering that we experience here on earth is going to not even just pale in comparison. It's going to be like less than a speck. It's not even going to be a thing. It's not even going to be a thought, because that is how wonderful it's going to be. And what it means to me now, in addition to that, is that the suffering that I experience here pales in comparison to the glory and the majesty and just the dominion and the awe and the power that is already available to me. When I stay close to God and when I allow Him to guide me in everything, even while I'm in this trial, even while I'm in this suffering, I've never praised God so much and thanked Him so much, because I see how He is just revealing Himself to me in every piece of this. And that kind of mercy and that kind of grace is so much greater than whatever it is that I'm going through. It's so much greater than whatever I'm going through. Y'all, honestly, this has been a really, really hard couple of weeks for me. And God is still so good. When I think about how good God is, when I think about how good and gracious and merciful and kind and loving He has been to me, even in these past couple of weeks alone, it's bigger than what I've been going through. It's bigger. So we don't have to wait until we're no longer here on this earth to experience all of what He has to offer. We don't have to wait. We can experience it now. And that is such a comforting thought to me. Another verse that I've really been meditating on lately is Romans 15 and 13. I've been in Romans, y'all. Romans 15 and 13, which says, all right, let's see if I can quote it. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that you may abound in hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. I've been really studying and thinking a lot about hope this year. That's been like a theme of mine this year. But that verse says that may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace so that you may receive hope. So what I'm learning is that hope comes after the joy and the peace. And we have to be able to experience and access that joy and that peace regardless of what we're going through. So when God fills you with that joy and that peace, it don't really go anywhere when your circumstances change. The joy and the peace that he has been giving me, and the joy and the peace that has been growing in me, has not dissipated because my circumstances have changed, which helps me to still have hope in the middle of my circumstances. Right. So I know a lot of times we may want to ask, like, what does it look like to, like, actually hold on to God in the middle of all of this? And I think that is a part of it, right? Knowing that the things that he has given you do not go away when your circumstances change. He has given you those things so that you can endure through your circumstances. And so in this moment and in this time, I am so grateful for the joy and the peace that he has filled me with. Because multiple things can be true. I can be filled with joy and peace and have hope, and I can be going through it and struggling and suffering and in a lot of pain. Multiple things can be true, but making space for multiple truths, it makes it so much easier, so that the suffering does not eclipse the joy, so that the suffering does not eclipse the hope. Okay, so now let's move on to our question of the day. Just as a reminder, if you have a question that you want answered on this show, you can send me an email at therapyandprayer@gmail.com, or you can leave a question in the comments wherever you are watching or listening to this. All right, so today's question says, I'm reaching out for help. I have suffered abuse all my life. I have shut down and been isolating myself. I don't have close friends or family. It has run over into keeping me from going to gatherings, etc. I've been a stay-at-home mom, so now I feel behind socially and unable to go into the workplace for having a lack of communication and support. I don't know how to release this, nor do I have a plan to start. I just need to start the healing process. Can you share some steps that help? First things first, you've already started the healing process because you have an awareness of the fact that you need healing. That's the very first step is that awareness. You know what some of your issues are and where they're stemming from. That's a big part of it. Now, of course, my primary encouragement here is to seek professional help and to try to find a therapist. Now, if you're wanting to know how to start with that, I always direct people to the different therapy directories. There are so many that are available. Some of my favorites are Therapy for Black Girls. There's also Black female therapists. There is clinicians of color. I say that because I'm a person of color, and I think the majority of my following here are people of color too. Psychologytoday.com is another good one because they have the most filters. So you can filter by insurance, you can filter by type of therapy, and they are going to have the most listings there. So definitely find a therapist to work through a lot of this trauma. It just sounds like you've been through so much in your life, and that you've been holding it by yourself for so long. I don't believe that there is one right way to start facilitating your healing. And so if that is a part of the concern, then I want you to release that. There's not a right or wrong way to start healing. Knowing that you need help is the first step. Being able to acknowledge some of the things that you need to release and need help from, that's a great step as well. So finding someone that can help, leaning on maybe some of the people who can be close to you. And I think another thing is if you have some expectation of what you believe a healed version of you will look like, I want you to release that as well. When we enter into this healing journey with a specific image or view of what we think our healed self is supposed to look like, we don't allow ourselves the room to go on the healing journey that we actually need to be on. And we become very rigid and we become very critical of ourselves. There's a lot of shame that comes in that too. So be patient with yourself. Give yourself the time and space to explore what that's going to look like for you. Yeah, I think those are probably some of my primary encouragements. I am so glad that you have found these episodes to be helpful. That's also a really good step. You've already started doing a lot. I don't know if you realize it, and this is really common too. We don't always realize what we're doing for ourselves. You've already taken several steps. You have found this show and you've been listening to it and you said that it's been helpful for you. You've started journaling recently. You've been able to identify where some of your issues are coming from. You've been able to identify your trauma and how it's been affecting you. You've already taken some really big steps. And so I want you to give yourself some credit for that. And then give yourself the room. You have to kind of like partner with yourself on this journey. Give yourself the room and the space to go on whatever healing journey is going to be right for you. Now, going back again to finding a therapist, as you're looking for a therapist, feel free to shop around a little bit. It's not easy to find the right therapist for you, and a lot of people get discouraged with that. So, I would say set up some consultation calls. Most therapists offer a free consultation call where you can talk to them for a couple of minutes, just a couple minutes. Now, it's not a therapy session, just a couple of minutes so you can see if you maybe connect with them, or you can ask them any questions you might have, see if their approach works for you. And then you can kind of make the best decision for you. That's it. And then if and when you do get into therapy, be as honest as you can. Be as open and as honest and as transparent as you can. If there are some safe people in your life, maybe think about opening up to some of them about what you have been going through. But I think, my primary encouragement would be to find someone to help you navigate this healing journey, because it's going to be a long one ahead, but you're going to be so much better for it. So I hope that you keep listening and keep coming back here and keep getting encouragement here. Hopefully this can continue to be nourishing for you. But I have no doubt that you're going to be successful on whatever healing journey you decide to embark on. And I'm just happy to be a part of it, even a little bit. All right, guys. I think that's all I have for you today. Who knows what this episode actually is going to be or how it's going to turn out. But I thank you all for letting me work through some of this with you. Keep me in your prayer and I will keep you in mind. Thank you so much for listening. I love you so much. I will talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to this episode of Therapy and Prayer. Make sure you're subscribed and following wherever you listen to podcasts. And if the Spirit moves you, go ahead and leave us a review. If you want to submit a question to be answered on this show, send us an email at therapyandprayer@gmail.com. And make sure you're following us on TikTok at Therapy and Prayer. Thanks again for listening. I'll talk to you soon.